Hey, Pete, we want you to take us to the $11 million. You got 72 hours before we start clipping your family.
We're gonna steal $11 million.
It's impossible.
The trick is always impossible until it isn't.
You got 72 hours before we start clipping your family.
We're gonna steal $11 million.
It's impossible.
The trick is always impossible until it isn't.
Well, hello everybody. Welcome to the stream tonight. Sorry about the delay on that. Right, what we're going to do. This is Danny from Click Team, also formerly Click Fusion Academy 2. Let me just mute my tab. We had a bit of an interruption there because I'm trying to connect from the UK, and most of the settings that I was getting are from America, and the closest server I could get to was Spain, and then we had London, and it's no good for me because I'm all the way out in the countryside here, all the way out in the sticks, so I didn't know what the best route was. I've had to knock the quality down because obviously I literally get like a 2 megabit per second upload speed, which is terrible. So yeah, it's been interesting. So let's see what we can do today. Now, I know Chris normally does the Reactor, and I don't know. Obviously, I've been watching some of the stuff that he does. Chris has a unique way of presenting and teaching Fusion 2.5, and obviously I have my own unique way of doing that as well. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. Just going to quickly paste in this link for some people on Discord, just to get people aware that this is going on. Get people interacting. I've got my chat box up somewhere here. Here we go. Hello, Happy Orange. Alright. Couldn't get my cam in tonight because I don't know where my camera is, my webcam, but it doesn't matter because we've got the screen. So hopefully you can see the detail of the screen alright too. Right, so what are we going to do tonight? Well, there's a few things that we can do. We can cover, I don't know what kind of levels that you're working with Chris on the Reactor, beginner, intermediate or advanced. We could do maybe some fast loop stuff, maybe some for each loops, I don't know. Let's try and do something that we can continue working on after this stream. That sounds pretty good to me. There's a whole range of different games and stuff out there that you can work on, and obviously I've been doing a lot of tutorials today. I've literally been recording videos for 12 hours straight today, so you'd think I'd be in the zone, but after I've covered so many different tutorials just today alone, it's been a bit of a hectic one. So let's see if you guys can come up with something that maybe we could work on. I'm just going to rack my brains now for 2 seconds. I'm sure we can come up with something. I've had to knock my resolution down as well, so I've lost a bit of window space here, so I'm going to have to adjust all this. This was just so I could get a faster stream and make sure that the connection was going to be alright. Alright, let's have a look. What can we do? What can we do? I'm working on a crash course at the minute for Fusion 2.5. That should be available just after the weekend, so that should be something to definitely look out for. And in the crash course, I've had to cover a whole a multitude of different functions, methods, and routines that you can use in Click Team Fusion 2.5. The crash course is kind of like with some of the other courses that I've done on Udemy and stuff. It's kind of like you have an A, B, and C, so you kind of go from if you're going to design a platform game, for example, then the course would be just around designing that platform game from start to finish. But with the crash course, it's a little bit different. It kind of covers a lot of intermediate and advanced stuff in Fusion 2.5. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. Make dynamic flashlight with shadows. I could do that, but we could be here for a couple of hours with a bit of trial and error. I haven't done that for a while. Let me think. What have I been working on lately that we can jump straight into? The flashlight with shadows thing is going to take quite a while. I mean, I've only managed to allocate maybe an hour and a half for this time slot, and I'm already 20 minutes overdue. But I will make that up to you in this stream. Don't worry, I'm not going to cut the stream short. I was hoping someone was going to mention fast loops, then I could rock into some fast loop stuff, because that seems to have been the only thing I've been working on today. maybe we could do some data handling. Maybe we could do some saving and loading of data. I feel like that's an important thing. Saving and loading of data using the string tokenizer. I've been teaching those methods quite a lot lately, using the string tokenizer to compact data into lines and then saving the list file formats. Very good for application development and game development as well. So I'm going to roll with that. Let's roll with that. I'm going to roll with creating, handling, sharing, saving and loading of data in Fusion 2.5. Let's rock and roll with that. Alright, so what do we need first of all? Let's drop in an active object, see what we can do with this active object. Alright, so this is going to be our player object. In fact, we've got a library down here. Why don't we use a library? Let's not use some boring graphics. Let's use some library stuff. Tutorials, nah, it's too old school. Let's check out the game section. What we got in here? Got some isometric stuff. Could do with some top-down stuff, really. Some top-down stuff, not that stuff. Some of this is some old school stuff in here. Some of this stems way back to Multimedia Fusion. Yeah. Alright, this one's a pretty good library. It's not awful. I've seen worse. Yeah, that's a top-down one. So we've got Alien Attack, which we can use in there. I've not got my multi-screen set up today either, so I have to flick my windows up in the same monitor. So I'm down to one monitor for today. Treasure hunt, what's that? That's a C1. We don't want to be diving into no oceans at this time of night. Horror sprites, that's a platform. Jane. RPG, that's interesting. Maybe we could go with the RPG elements. RPG, yeah, let's go with the RPG one. Sounds pretty good to me, let's do it. Alright, let's see what we've got in here to play with. So that's in RPG figures, furniture and outdoor. Oh, not that one. There we go. Alright, cool. Let's do that then. Yes. Let's get this wooden floor dropped in. Right, let's rock and roll. So we'll drop this in. I'm going to assume this is a quick backdrop object. Yep. So I can space that out. Not a fan of this limited screen. 640, 480 will stick at the default resolution for this. Just going to take off the heading. I'll keep the heading on. Get rid of the menu. I don't know what's happened there. 640, 480. Alright, so we'll start indoors, see how we get on with that. I'm not going to bother too much with the level design at this moment. I'm not going to do that. I really want to show you how you can use data inside Fusion 2.5, how you can share it between frames, and how you can save and load data really quick as well. Because that seems to have been the theme of this week with the tutorials that I've been doing and stuff. So I feel like I can just rock and roll with that. So let's get a figure in that we can use for our player. Do we want Muscle Man? Muscle Man. Yes, let's be Muscle Man. He's even got a punch animation. Look at that. Perfect. Okay, that's already got movement assigned. Let's run that. Let's check it out. Yep, looks good. Debuggers out of the view. Let's drag that in. Alright. Awesome. Right. I'm going to try spreading that around because I want to be able to walk diagonally as well. Alright. So this is our guy. This is our main man right here. Alright, so I've got a folder on my computer which I've been using for temporary stuff. So let's open that up. So I'm going to use this folder. It's on my C drive. It's temp51. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to use this to save and load our data. Now we want a screen prior to this where we can create our guy. So I'm going to create a new frame. I'm going to call this Let's call it player creator. I hope you didn't get that then, that system sound. You can turn it off somewhere. Doesn't matter, let's jump in. Right, so this is going to be our, we're going to create our guy first. So I'm going to assume before you create an RPG game, you're going to get a bit of information off the user. Like you're going to get, you're going to be able to get them to name their player and stuff like that. So if we drop in an edit box, we'll spend a couple of minutes making it look at least half decent. Player name. Alright. It's going to take a while to load up the 3 million font, so no, we're cooking on gas. Let's go for the very damaged font. It's quite a cool font, I like that. Let's give it a black background. Let's go for a white font. Let's take a look at that, see what that looks like. Yeah, a little bit tacky, but you can polish out later on. And this is our guy here. Now I'm gonna make this guy look a little bit bigger. I'm gonna do starter frame. I'm gonna do scale, set scale to 2.5 with maximum quality. There we go. Alright, let's pop him in the center. Just gonna clone that down. Put player name. So, I'm gonna make this a little bit bigger. Give it a different colour. Let's go for red. Red for danger. What have we got in the chat here? Make a multiplayer game. Yeah, we're definitely not going to be able to squeeze that in this window. Right, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm just going to save this. I'm going to call it Reactor, just so I can keep saving it along the way, and then it doesn't if it crashes right like that. Look at that, it's perfect. Alright, so this is going to be our player name, blah blah blah. Alright, so what we're going to do first of all is we're going to use a global string. We can carry this over frame by frame then. So global strings will be, we're going to call it data1, because that is how I roll. Data1, that's what we're going to use. We're going to use the date and time objects as well. There's a very good little trick that I like to use when creating and saving and loading data. Now the reason why I'm using the date and time object is because if I want to create a unique ID, so for example if I call this player say John, say we're going to call him John, and we save that data into our file, now when we come to reference a player, say we've got multiple players that we want to choose from, if I select John straight away, or I want to search through the player list to see if John's there might be another John, there might be a duplicate, and then you're going to start getting confused in Fusion 2.5. So the way I'm going to do it, I'm going to drop a list in here just to show you how this is done. And you can do this cross-platform. You can use this for PC, you can use it for Android, iOS, Flash, HTML5, works straight across the board. This method of saving and loading data is really, really fast and efficient. And we're going to use a string tokenizer as well. So if you've never used that, you're going to learn how to use that in this stream too. So I need a button. Drop a button in as well. This button's going to be continue. Right, now this is where the fun begins. So we've got a player, say we've got our player name, we might also want to create some stats for our player, because it's kind of like an RPG game. We might want a bit of information about our player, so we can do stuff like player age, so we can give our player an age as well. I'm just cloning all these, as you can see. I'm just going to label this edit box so I don't get confused. That's going to be player name. And then we're going to have the player age going here. I need to center these horizontally as well. There we go. So this is going to be player age. Just like that. And then finally we're going to have the player country. Let's go for country. Now the way I'm coding this as well is if you are going to create an online multiplayer game, you could do this, because obviously when you have a new player come to the server, they want to be able to create their own character. So you could use this as well in multiplayer. If you're using Lacewing, you could use this quite easy. So it's a really good principle to follow. I feel like this was a good choice of topic to do tonight. So that's 60. So this is player country. All right, looking good. Player country. All right. So I'm just going to run that, see what it looks like. Yeah, it looks all right. Going to drag all this to the top of the frame. Put a continue button there. Now we need to keep this list in view, because I'm going to show you how we do the saving and loading of the data. So I'm going to keep that up down there. I don't know where we're going to put Muscle Man. We'll keep him there. He looks all right there, doesn't he? Let's just catch up on the chat. Yeah, we're all right with nothing else to cover on that. Right. Now, there's a bit of a trick here. What you don't want to do is you don't want your player to put a name in here and then forget to put stuff in here and then click continue. You don't want that. So I'm going to show you another trick right now. Where is he from? How old is he? What is his name? Groovy. Just going to put that up there. I'm going to drag this list down underneath here, like so. Right, now the trick is, if you select all three of these edit boxes that are required, then what you can do is give them all an alterable value called char length, just like that. So we jump into the events, and straight away we can do this, always. So we can do an always event, and then for each one we can set its own length. So we can do alterable values set char length, and this is of the first one here. So we can just simply type in len and brackets, and then get the text from the player name. So I'm just going to show you how that works. I'm just going to load up in other objects. Where is it? Player name. So there's the alterable value, char length. So when I type his name in, you can see I've typed in Danny. It's 5 characters, and it's got 5 characters. The reason why we do this is so that we can tell when all these have been filled out, because they have their own value as a char length. So we know that the user has put some characters in there. So I can simply copy this across to here, and then this will be player age, and then player country. So then what we can do is we can do an event that says if char length of player name is greater than 0 and char length of the player age is greater than 0 and the char length of player country is greater than 0, then we can do visibility reappear, and in always we can do visibility invisible. So it's always going to be invisible. So when I run the right, hopefully you guys are still with me. My internet is terrible here. Alright, Bartek tells me it's back up. That's excellent. Right, so I'll start that again. So let's just revert back slightly. So what we're going to do is we are always going to make the button invisible until this event becomes true by these three conditions becoming true. So player name has greater than 0 characters in it, player age also, and the player country, and then we tell the object to reappear. So if his name's Danny, he's 32 and he's from the UK, you can see that our button now appears. It can be a little bit glitchy sometimes like that. It's a little bit funky. There are ways around it that we can polish that up. Not make it go all crazy and stuff like that. We can simply just detect through negatable events, such as is any of the boxes equal to 0. So we can just copy that down. Don't forget, this MFA is going to be available as well, so you'll be able to download it when I'm done. You can play about with it yourself. So that should be a little bit more better. 32 UK, there we go. That's not going to flash like crazy. Right, so now that we've got that bit out of the way, I'm going to put it in a group as well, so I'll keep everything nice and clean. Check input fields, and I'm going to drag them into there. I might as well pop this always event in there as well, because it's pretty much part of that. So that's that covered. So this continue button won't show now until we have information input into all these fields, and then we click continue. So what we're going to do when we click continue, we're going to jump to our first level here, but before we do that we need to get the data all together. So we create our event button clicked. If the button is clicked, let me just check this is back up. Yep, it was still there. If the button's clicked, we're going to set the global string data1, what we set before. Now we can use this data throughout the application once we've stored it in here, and we're also going to save it into our list so we can save it to the computer as well. And then we'll come back to that later on about how you can load a player up. You don't necessarily have to create a new player every time. So what's the first thing that we want to do? Well, the first thing that we want to do is store the data that we've typed in. So the first thing we're going to store is we're going to get the text of the player name, and then we're going to type in plus hash and then plus, and then let's get the player age, and again plus hash plus plus, and then we'll get finally the player country from there. Now you might be wondering why we're using the hashes, and again, if you've never used the string tokenizer before, you need those hashes in. Let me just show you exactly how it works first of all. So if we get rid of this out of the debugger and open up data1, so we can see the global string there, data1. So I'm going to type in Danny, age 32, he's from the UK. So watch what happens when I click continue. You can see now that we've stored that data in the data1 global string. So we've got Danny 32 UK. Alright, so by us storing all the information to one string of text, we can now use this information throughout the entire game. We can split out all the hashes, and we're left with elements. So this is an element, this is an element, and this is an element, and elements are defined by the hashes. So Fusion will read along the element until it hits the hash, and then that becomes element 0, which is the first element, and then it'll continue running along, so it'll get 32 and it hits another hash, and it'll be like, okay, this is element 1, and then so forth, this is element 2. So we can use this. So what I'm going to do right now is we're going to add it to data1, then we're going to add a line. We're going to add the same line so we can get data1. So we're going to add that to the list. So let me just try and show you that again. So we've got Danny 32 UK, click continue. As you can see, it's in data1 and it's also in our list file. Now we can use this list file to save. So we can simply do files, save list file, and then we'll use an expression and we'll type in C temp51 mygame.lst. Alright, so let's try that one more time. So we've got Danny 32 UK, click continue. We've got it in our data1 slot, we've got it in our list file, and now when we go to C temp51, we've also got it on our computer, which we can open up with Notepad. There you go. So that's our data saved, and it's also stored it as well. Now we've got a bit of an issue here, because when we come to run the game again, there's nothing there, and we want to be able to load up our character if we can. So we simply do start a frame, files, load list file, use expression. We know where it's stored, ctemp51 mygame.lst. So now when we run the application, the data is there. So what we can do is we can put in a load function. I don't know what that was I dropped in. Let's drop in a button. So we drop in another button, and we're going to call this load. So you can load different players. So a simple event. Let's do button clicked. Now this is where we get to use the string tokenizer. So let's drop in the string tokenizer. It's a non-visual object, so we can drop it outside the frame area. We don't need it. So what do? This is what we do. The button is clicked. We're going to assume the user has selected one of the players from the list. So we can simply do split string under the string tokenizer. So it's asking us which string we want to split. So we simply just get current line from the list file. Now it's going to ask us what the delimiters are, and the delimiters are hash. So we pop that in, and now the string tokenizer would have split the string up, which will be this string, and it's going to use hash as the delimiter. So how does that work then? Well, what we can do is the player name. We can do edit set text, so we can actually load the information up from that string. So we get the element 0, because when we split this string up, there's 3 elements, as you can see. We've got the name, the age, and the country. But just like most things in Fusion, everything starts with a 0. So the first element is element 0, and then we've got element 1, and then we've got element 2. So the player name we can fill in, and then same again for the player age. We can do set text, and we can do get element, and we get element number 1, and then finally we can do edit set text, and we can get element number 2. So this enables now the player to load up a profile. So we can select this and click load, and as you can see, it's loaded all the information up, which is good stuff. Because if I wanted to create a second player called John, and he's 46, and he's from Germany, won't be many Johns in Germany, and click continue, you can now see we've got Danny and John. So if I want to load Danny, I can just simply select Danny and click load, and it fills in all the information for Danny. If I wanted to load John, I can just click load, and it will load all the information for John. We do also need to ensure that when we click on load, that we also set the data 1, and that's just so that this string is always up to date, because we're going to use this string to take us into the next frame. So if I load John, I want to make sure that John's information goes in there as well. So I feel like we've covered quite an area there already in not so long of a time. We've managed to create a player screen where we can create players in real time. We can create new players, or we can load an existing player. We've also been able to check whether all these fields are populated before this continue button allows us to go to the next frame. Not much conversation going on in there, but I know that I'm using Restream tonight, so I'm going out to YouTube, Twitch, Mixer. There's quite a few. If any of you guys are wanting to jump in the chat, I've not got multi-screen set up tonight, so get yourself over to the YouTube channel where you can jump on the chat there. Right, so that's pretty much covered. Can't wait to share that MFA with you so you can check it out. So let's now jump to frame 1, which is our level. So I'm just going to put in level 1, just like that. Right, we also need to jump back here. When we click continue, which is here, we just need to make sure that we jump to the next frame. So I'm going to load Danny up. As you can see, the data's there. So when I click continue and we come into this frame, we've got this data now, so we can do pretty much anything we want with this data. first of all, what we're probably best off doing is if you're going to create an online multiplayer, I mean, this is great for single player and multiplayer. This is what I'm going to do. Where's the hotspot on this guy? Right, it's at his face. It's around his face. Dropping a quick backdrop object. I always design this stuff at 0, 0. It's just a lot easier for when you're coding it in the event editor in relation to where you want it to be from the player. If you code everything at 0, 0, you can't go wrong. Let's give it a bit of a border. Let's give it a 1 pixel border. That was green. Green's looking alright. Not a fan of that shade. Let's go for a darker shade. Something like that. That'll do. Alright, so in here we're gonna have the player name. We're gonna get all the information up about the player. Now you already know how to use all this kind of stuff. So you can use this throughout your game if you're going to create some dialogue where you're talking with other players and whatnot. You know which information to get, so we can get player age and player country. Just going to set these to different colours. So I'm also going to change the font size down a little bit as well, just a little bit too big that for this kind of size. There we go. Bring it down one. Alright. So again, what can we do with this data? Now don't forget, when you're splitting it up, you're going to need the string tokenizer in. Now you could be thinking to yourself, well, the data that we have in data 1, could we not just split it into 3 separate ones, such as the player name, player age and the player country? And you could do, but I would highly recommend that you try and stick with using one line information, even for your own benefit, because it gets you into the habit of being able to save and load data just through the use of one file. Okay, so before I continue with that, there's one more thing that I need to show you that I actually forgot to show you in the player creator, and that is why I brought in the date and time object. There's a very good reason for this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete my game LST, so we're going to start with a fresh here. The reason why I'm going to use this is because we're going to create a unique ID for our player. So on the button where we save the data, on the event where we save the data, which is when we click the continue button here, you can see that we set data 1 to player name, player age and player country, which shows up in here when we click on continue. But we want to be able to set a unique ID, and there's a valid reason for this. And again, it's because if you have multiple profiles but they share the same name, there won't really be any way you can differentiate between that, should you ever come to be able to modify lines from a data file. But you can do it with a unique ID, which is good. So what we do is we go to our data 1 that we edit here. Alright, now this is going to seem a little bit complicated at first, but I think you'll get the gist of it. The best way to create, or one of the best ways to create a unique ID, is to use the current time. And the reason why that is probably the most safest way to create a unique ID is because you can't go back in time. So if you create a profile on this second, if you create another profile in the next second, obviously the ID will be different, and we can get all that from the clock. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, we need to string convert, and we can start from anywhere we want on here. We can go from the year, the month, the day of the month, the day of the week, the hours, the minutes. seconds. We're not going to go as extensive as that. I would recommend that you do, but I'm just going to literally start from hours. So I'm going to do hours, and then again I'm going to do string convert. So let's get the minutes, and then a string convert again. Let's get the seconds, and then a string convert again, and let's get hundredths of seconds. Now, if you wanted to make this where's all them brackets come from? Oh no, what have I done? I've got a million brackets come out of nowhere here. That's the problem. I took it out from them. There we go. Now, if you want to make it even more random, what you can do is at the beginning of that, you can give it also a random number as well. So you can generate a random number between 0. That's a little bit too high. Let's go for. So you can generate a random number between 0 and 27,362. Then we get the current hour of the day, we get the current minute of the day, the current second of the day, and the current hundredth of a second of a day. That's a millisecond. Then we attach the player name, the player age, the player country. So you're about to see this in all its glory right now. So let's check out data 1. So again, real simple. His name's Danny. He's 32. He's from the UK. We click continue, and as you can see now, we have our own unique ID. Now I messed up a little bit there. If we just open this up, because you can see I didn't put a hash in to separate between the unique ID and the name. So I'll just go back, just quickly tweak that. Yeah. So we look before the player name. There we go, and just put in plus, and there we go. So I'm just going to delete my game list. We don't need that. It's got corrupted data in it. Danny, 32, UK, continue, and there we go. So we now have a unique ID. This ID can never ever be replaced, as long as, I mean, it could do in the way I've done it here, because I've only used the hours, minutes and seconds, so technically it could. But if you put in the month and the date and the day as well, obviously them days can never come back, so it'll be truly unique. In fact, it's going to take me 2 seconds to do it, so I'm going to do it for you right now. So I'm just going to do plus string. Let's just do it, and it's done then. Truly unique ID. So we go for year, and then we do plus string convert, and we go for month plus string convert, and then day of month. You can go as big as you want with this, but this is foolproof. And then day of week. There we go. Alright, so I'm going to delete that one last time. So that looks like a real big expression, and technically it is a really big expression, but hopefully you've been able to follow it. So we start off with a random number between 0 and 27,362. Then we attach the year, the current year, 2018. Then we attach the month, which is the 3rd month, it's March. Then we attach the day of the month, and it is the 9th. Then we attach the day of the week, which will, what is it, Friday, so I'm assuming it'll be 5 because it works from Monday. And then the hours, minutes, seconds and milliseconds. So that is the most unique ID you are ever going to generate in your entire life, and it's never ever going to be able to repeat, ever. He's 32, he's from the UK. We click continue, and there's your unique ID. So you've got a unique ID for each player, then you've got the player name, then you've got the player age, and then you've got the player country. Now, why is it important to use data like this? Well, it's very important because as your player progresses throughout the game, you're going to have things like XP and HP, collectible items that he's got. You can store all that information inside this one string. That's all you have to do. And then when you come to save the data, all you're doing is compacting all the data into one string separated by hashes, and then you can just save the data. So you can save all your players' information all in one line. When the player quits and then he loads the game back up, he can just select his profile and all the information will be there all in one line. And that's what I'm about to design right now, just to get you off and running. I'm just going to show you how we can quickly decipher some of this information in one of our levels. So we've got our string tokenizer in here. One thing we do need to do when we do the load, you remember the load? Well, these will have changed now, because this will no longer be 0, 1, 2. This will now be 1, 2, and 3, because the reason why that is because our unique ID is now 0. So we can do that in here. We can do get element 0 plus, there we go. So you can see data 1 should be empty, and then we select our profile and click load, and then we get all our information up. Click continue, and we're back off. Alright, let's jump to level 1. Is there any questions so far? Like I said, I can't see the mixer chat, I can't see the Twitch chat, all I've got is the YouTube chat, and there's nothing up there so far, so I'm going to assume everyone's following so far. But if not, you'll be able to replay this stream and you'll be able to download the MFA as well. Right, everyone seems happy, so let's continue in our quest. Right, this is a quick backdrop object, which means we can't move it at runtime, so that's no good to us. So what we're going to have to do is create an active object out of it, just like that, and then we can delete our quick backdrop object. Make sure the hotspot's at 0, 0. It's just real easy to be able to line up. We'll send it to the back as well. Alright, so player name, player age, player country. So I don't really want this to appear all the time, but that's not the issue at the minute. What we need to do is let's do always split string data 1. This contains all the data for our player, and we're going to use hash as the delimiter, and then we're going to just simply set alterable string. You should know it by now. Element 1. For the age, it is element 2, and then for the country, it's element 3. So when I run the application now, let's load Danny up. Continue. So you see there now we've got Danny 32 UK. You can see how easy it is to use that data. Now I'm going to left align all that. Bring it out a little bit. Let's go for our left align. And the only time I want it to appear is when we hover over our player, because otherwise I'm just not a fan of it being stuck in the corner there like that. So I'm going to do always make invisible. I'm going to make the 3 strings invisible as well. And then I'm going to have an event that just says check for mouse pointer over an object. Is the mouse pointer over our player? We can set the X coordinate of the box to the X mouse. We can set the Y coordinate to Y mouse. And we can do visibility reappear. Now, text boxes, how do we know where to position them? Well, this is why I said you're best designing everything at 0, 0 here, because if your hotspot for your active object is at 0, 0, you can pretty much align these up just by getting the X and Y from here. So for example, this is at 5.4, this is at 5.25, and this is at 5.46. So 5.4, so now you can just do position, select position, you can select the box and then just put in 5.4. So watch what happens now when I run the game. Let's load our player up. can see now our box is loaded up there. So we've set the position of the string and then we reappear. And we can just simply drag that along and change the coordinates because it's the next one down, so it's 25, and I think the other one was 46 on the Y. You'll notice that it keeps creating Danny's here. There's a reason for that. Let's just jump back to player creator a second. It's because when we load our player up, so if we select one of these and click load, we have to click continue to go to the next frame, and when we click continue, it's saving the data again, so it's creating a million Dannies. So basically when we click, when we've selected load, we can just go to next frame, we don't have to click continue. Danny 32 UK, continue, so that when we run our game again, the one Danny, as soon as we click load, it continues. Perfect. Right, okay, so back to our game. As you can see, now that loads up. Let's jump back in here and see what's going on. So player name, set 54, set 525, 46. Player one, white, yellow. So let's just jump into this and see what's going on here. White, yellow, right. What's going down here then? Player name, player age, player country. Player name, player age, player country. Make invisible, make invisible, make invisible, make invisible. Right. I don't know what's going on there. We're missing a string for some reason. Where's our other string? Tell you what I am going to do. I'm going to not put that at X and Y mouse. I'm going to offset it slightly. I'm going to be 20 and 20. And try and figure out where this other string has disappeared to, because I have no idea. That's better. Alright, let me just open the debugger up, find out what's going on there. Text objects player name. Alright, so the player name is there somewhere. I just don't know where. Split set of data. Let me just check that the right data is going in there. 0. Ah, there's the problem, look. There's the problem. I didn't put the hash in on the data one. Remember from before, prior? I love it when things go wrong in Fusion. At least it gives me a chance to show you how to put it right again. You need to put a hash in between the ID and the name. And there we go. That was a quick debug. Alright, so you can see now that how we've handled that data, and we can bring it in. So if you are creating a multiplayer game or a single player game, you can see how using that data all in one line is going to allow you to bring it over to different frames. Now we can modify any of this data if we wanted to. I'm unsure whether it's going to get a little bit too complex at this point. I'm not sure. I don't know whether I'm allowed. I don't know how complex Chris gets with some of his streams. I mean, obviously it's very good to learn how to use this kind of data. Well, let me just show you something straight off the bat. So let's get a collectible for our player. What we're going to use as a collectible. There's a muscle man in a bath there. I don't think that's what we want to be using as a collectible. Let's see what we've got outdoor. Got a mushroom. Let's just use the mushroom as an example. Tell you what I'm going to do as well. I'm going to knock down the coefficient of that because it's just way too bright. I'm going to change the background colour of this frame so it's just a little bit darker. It just shows a bit of contrast between the player and everything. Let's lock that down. Alright, so these mushrooms we're going to use as collectibles. That's a backdrop object, so we'll create an active object out of it so we can collect it. Let's just give it a name. Mushroom. Alright. So we'll uncheck a few of these that are not needed. And let's dot a few of these about. Like so. There we go. Alright, so what we can do is, earlier on when I said it's good to get used to having all your data in one foot, what you can do is you can split it up, as long as you always revert back to the one line when you need to. So the first one is going to be ID, the second one is going to be name, the third one is going to be the age, the fourth one is going to be the country, and then we're going to create a new one. I'm going to call it health. So what do? Start a frame. Let's do start a frame. Now we've already got the information at the start of the frame, so we can split the string at the start of the frame, and then we can set all the strings up, the global strings. So I'm just going to make this a bit smaller. Alright, so we can set the ID to get element 0, we know that much. And then we can do set name to get element 1, and then we can do set age to get element 2, and then we can set country to get element 3. So let's just run that again, just so I can show you. Let's load Danny up. We've already got him. There he is. And now you can see we've split the data into some strings here in Fusion itself. Health is a string as well. But what I'm going to do, just for simplicity's sake, is we're going to create a health as a value as well. Now, when the user first loads the game up, he's going to have no health, because we haven't, when we do the player creator, the only data that we're saving right now is the ID, the name, the age and the country. So we can jump back to our events where we see where we create a player, which is here, and we can give him a default amount of health. So we could simply do hash and then 100, just like that. So we can give him this is what I mean, by having all the data into one line, you can literally specify anything. So we know now that when we're creating a new player, we give him 100 default health, as you can see there. So we're going to use that in our next frame now. So start a frame, we can set the HP to get element, I think it's element 4, and then we need to convert that to a value, just like that. I think it's element 4. Yeah, it's element 4. Happy days. Now, we don't have that assigned on here, so I'm just going to cheat and put in 100 there. So when I run the application now, you'll be able to see when we load, everything's come through except that set page of val element 4 should be there. 0 1 2 3 4. Okay, but it's no big deal, because what we can do is we can set the health string, we can set that to get element 4. So then we can set HP to val health, like that. Let's give that a shot. Should work. Not loading it. I think I'm loading it wrong. 1 0 1 2 3 4. Alright, let's try it from scratch, see what happens. 32 UK, continue. There we go, we've got 100 health there and 100 HP. So if I quit and then load it up, we don't have a health from the load because of our load routine here. So all we need to do is just put So this is all part of learning how to do this save and load. Just make sure you load all the information up. There we go. So now when I load this, you can see we have 100 health as a string, and we have 100 HP there. Alright, so what else can we do with this information? We can modify the information. Let's just check on here, see if there's any yeah, so basically it's alright having all this information as a global string, and it's alright having all this information in a file. So what's the easiest way to relate to the file? Well, this is where the unique ID comes into play now, because we know which file in the list we're going to reference just by the unique ID. So we drop in a list object. Now this list object, I'm just going to keep it in view for the time being, just so you can see visually on screen what we're going to be doing. Once you're running your game, you can just hide this list, and you don't have to, you can just drag it off screen and just hide it, and the user will never see it, so you can just use it for relating to. So we need to create an event right now when our player collides with a mushroom. We need to add 25 to the HP and then destroy the mushroom. So let's just give that a quick run. Let's just make sure that that works all right. So when our big muscly guy goes over this mushroom here, you can see HP is 100. When we collide with that, we've just increased it by 25, and it destroys the mushroom, and then 50. All right, so what do we need to do? We need to figure out how we can save this information. Now, you don't have to continually save all the information. What you can do is you can detect for end of frame or end of application or something like that, or just have an interval like every 10 seconds or every 20 seconds you can save the data. It doesn't matter when you're going to execute it, but I'm going to put it in a group. I'm going to call it save data, and I'm going to disable the group. So the first thing we're going to do when the group happens is we need to build up our data1 slot. Again, we need to compile everything into data1. Let me just show you real quick. So you can see data1 is our data slot. This contains all the information in one line about our player, and as you can see, we've got everything else here that's separate. So what we need to do is when we come around to saving the data, we need to rebuild this string to have all the new values in. So if this HP value is 150, you can see that the last saved value is 100, so we need to update that. So what we do is we rebuild the data1 line. We put in the ID, we put in the name, we put in the age, we put in the country, and then we bring the 150 value and put it in here, so that when the player comes to load the game up again, it's loading all the correct information, such as the last bit of health and stuff that it had. So we can really quickly put this together. We can just do set global string data1. So you've got to remember the format. It might be useful to write it down somewhere, and the format for ours goes like this: ID plus name plus age plus country plus the health. Now we can get the health from the actual HP global value. There we go. So we've set our string. So once we've set the data1 string, we can then simply save the file. Now we know which one we're doing, because what we're going to do at the start of the frame is we're going to load up our list file the same way we did in the player creator. So ctemp51 mygame.lst, just like that. So we're going to drag that up to the top, so that's the first action, just to make sure that that gets loaded up. Let me just quickly test that, see what happens. So you can see now that this is loaded up in the game as well. So if you have 50 player profiles in here, they'll all be loaded up in there. Now if we set this to a 0 based index, jump back to the player creator and also set this to a 0 based index, then what we can do is we can have another line, another global value in here called profile number. So we can go to profile number based on the line that was selected in the list. So when we click on the load button, we also set profile number to the currently selected line, which is gets current line number. So when just going to open this up, so the profile number's there. As you can see, when I click load, it's going to stay at 0 because that was the first line, which starts at 0. So just to show you how that works, I'm going to create a guy called Jeff. He's about 72 and he is from USA. Continue. So now you can see we've got Danny and Jeff. So when I come back to load that up again and I select Jeff, it should be number 1 because this is 0 and this is 1. So I click on that. As you can see, we now know which profile number in the list, in the game list, that we're going to modify the data from. So what do we do? Let's go back to level 1. So we've compiled our new data line. We're not executing this group anywhere yet. Let's see if I can just I'm going to do it so when I press spacebar, we activate that save data group. Let's load Jeff. Alright, so keep your eye on this data1 string. So remember, every time I go over a mushroom, I'm going to increment the HP by 25. So as you can see, this is our old data. So now I'm going to save this data and it's going to update the data1 string with all the information here and the new HP level. And there you go. Now you notice I haven't put any hashes in, so that's not going to work. So we'll quickly jump back here and put some hashes in there because we need to separate all the data with hashes, just like that. So I could just copy that and paste and paste and paste. Try it again. Let's load Jeff up. Alright, let's try it again. So you can see the old save data is 100 on the health, but we've got 125, we've got 150. So let me press spacebar, and you can see now that it's updated that data1 string. So what do we do once we've updated the data1? We then simply, in the list, change a line, enter the index of the line to change. Well, we saved that at the beginning, which is the profile number, and then it's going to ask us to enter the new text, which we can then simply just select data1, because we've already compiled all the information that we need to save. And then we just simply do files, save list file, c temp 51 mygame.lst, and that's pretty much it. And then you can just drag another event down here that says only one action when event loops, deactivate save data. Good to go. So I'm just going to show you quickly in here that we have Danny and Jeff, one from the UK, he's 32, and Jeff 72 from the USA, and they've both got the default counter of 100 health. So these are two new players that we've got here. So I'm going to load up Jeff. Again, I'm going to show you the debugger so you can see everything's all in order. So I'm going to collect some mushrooms. Let's get up to 175. And I'm going to press space, and it's now saved the data. So if I close the application and go and check it out here in the text file, you can see that it's updated Jeff's health to 175, so that when I come to run the application again and I load Jeff up, we automatically get loaded up with 175 on the health. So you can see how you can use data in Fusion 2.5. I can't keep up with this chart. But you can see how you can use the string tokenizer to compile, save, modify and share data over frames, as long as you remember that you need to, before you change a line, you need to recompile the string here. But as long as you know the data format that's in that string, so what you would do generally is, if you feel like you're going to have a lot of data to store, then just keep track of it in a notepad file. You know, you just put in something like ID and then hash and then name hash, age hash, country hash, and then HP, and then as long as you save that, then you know what order of data is being saved. So you can then, from this point onwards, you can then create a stack of data that you want to save. So for example, you could save the X coordinate, the Y coordinate, you can save the level number that the player's on, you could save how many coins they've got, like 9,000 coins. As long as you know what that format is, then when it comes to saving it and loading it in Fusion 2.5, it's pretty much straightforward. So I don't know, like I said, I can't see the Mixer chat, I can't see the Twitch chat, but I don't know if there's any questions. What program did you use to create the player sprites and animations? Did you use? Yeah, like Danny B says, I just used the library assets here. So see if we got I don't know how old you are, Jeffrey. There's actually that was actually a rib at Jeff Vance, but I don't think Jeff's tuned in tonight. He's probably 60 meters underwater somewhere. Yeah, so hopefully you guys managed to understand how that works. As you can see, there's not really that many events. If you look at the player creator frame that we did, it's literally 10 events, and that enables us to check the input fields, so we can verify that the user has actually put text in here before we continue, because the last thing you want to be doing is selecting continue and having blank information inside here, because it can mess things up big time. So you just want to make sure that you've got all the data in that you need. But yeah, so you can see how we can pass all that information from frame to frame. We can modify it anytime. Like if you've got a little shop up here and your player goes up to the shop, you know, and he buys himself some health, all you have to do is just update all your values here like you normally would, and when it comes to saving, just recompile this. So just drag all the information in, build it up like we did in here. So on the save data, you can see we set data 1. So we set the data that we want to save. We set the ID, we set the name, we set the age, the country, and the HP. So once you've set that data string, all you're doing then is just modifying which line it is in the file, in the list, in the game file, and then just saving it. It's pretty much as straightforward as that. I don't really know where else I can go. I'm running out of time a little bit here. I'm gonna have to cut off real soon, but hopefully that was an interesting insight for how you can use data in Fusion 2.5. Not many people know the correct, I mean, there isn't really a correct way that you can save and load data in Fusion 2.5. It's like anything else in Fusion, there's multiple ways that you can do things, but this to me is the epitome of how you should be saving and loading data. I mean, some people go as far as to using arrays and stuff, which is absolutely fine. I mean, when you think about it, you know, an array isn't too much different from using list files. You know, it just depends on what kind of dimensions you're looking at, but this is pretty much just like a 2D. It's just a flat array. It's just one line of data, and you can see we're using delimiters to separate what that data is, which we can then split out and use whichever way we want. But this is, again, this is useful because it also works cross-platform, so it works for Android, mobile, it works for HTML5, Flash, Xbox One, PC, it'll work for them all. And the other beauty about using data like this is if you decide to make your game into a multiplayer game, then you'll be able to send all that data to your game server as well, just by recompiling, you know, just by compiling the list like that and sending it over to your Lacewing server or whatever it is that you're going to be using for the information. So yeah, hopefully you guys found that interesting. I wish I could see all the other things, but I came in last minute. Chris had to shoot off to something really important today, so It's Friday night, and he asked me to step in, so I've tried the best I could. But hopefully that's a great introduction for you into Fusion 2.5. So thanks for tuning in tonight. It's been really insightful, and I can't wait to get this crash course out on Udemy because I've worked so hard on it. I've got over 4 hours of content on there already, bursting to go. There's a lot of intermediate and advanced stuff as well, stuff like this, but this was literally done on a whim. So what I'll do is I'll try and get this MFA over to you guys over on the Reactor page somehow. I'll put it on the Click Team Facebook page as well, and try and get it shared around there, and I'll also put it on the forums, on the Click Team forums as well. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I'll see you in the next one, or I'll see you around the academy or on the Click Team forums or on Discord. I'll see you guys somewhere.